Captain stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise and watched the alien ship appear out of nowhere. One moment, there was nothing but empty space near Jupiter. The next moment, something massive blocked out the stars. The ship was beautiful. It looked like someone had carved it from a single piece of crystal. Light bent around its surface in strange ways, creating rainbow patterns that hurt to look at. The vessel was 3 kilometers long, bigger than anything humanity had ever built. It just floated there, silent and still, as if waiting for something. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant from the communication station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly on the controls. "Put it through," said. He straightened his uniform and prepared himself. This was the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. Were we alone in the universe? Today, they had their answer. The main screen flickered to life. An alien face appeared, and several crew members gasped. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. Its skin was pale blue and covered in what looked like silver markings. When it spoke, the words came through perfectly clear in English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador of the Empire. We have traveled far to meet you. We welcome you to the galactic community." Nodded slowly. "Ambassador, I am Captain of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. We are honored by your visit." 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "How charming. We have monitored your species for some time. You are very young, of course. Only 10,000 years of civilization. Quite primitive, but that is expected." Doctor, standing beside, raised an eyebrow at the word primitive. She was Earth's best, brought along specifically for this moment. She had studied every language on Earth and several theoretical alien language structures. She noticed the tone in the ambassador's voice immediately. It was the same tone a teacher might use with a small child. "We appreciate your patience with our youth," said carefully. "We have much to learn." "Indeed," agreed. His 4 eyes seemed pleased. "We would like to invite you to our nearest outpost. There, we can show you the wonders of the galaxy. We can teach you how to take your proper place in civilized space." Glanced at, she gave him a small nod. "We would be grateful for the opportunity," he said. "Excellent, we shall escort you. Please follow our ship. Do not worry about the journey. Your vessel is quite slow by our standards, but we will match your speed." The alien's tone suggested he was doing them a great favor. As the conversation continued, they demonstrated their technology casually, as if showing off toys to children. They made objects appear out of thin air using matter synthesis. They showed how they could manipulate gravity, making the crew of the Horizon's Promise feel lighter or heavier at will. They even displayed their faster-than-light communication system, sending a message to their home world and receiving an answer in seconds. Each time they showed something new, waited expectantly, as if hoping the humans would fall to their knees in wonder. Instead, and his crew took careful notes. They asked technical questions. They remained polite but professional. This seemed to confuse the ambassador. "Are you not amazed?" he finally asked. "Most species weep with joy when they see what the galaxy has to offer." "It's very impressive," said truthfully, "but we prefer to understand before we react." Markings flickered in a pattern that might have been confusion. How unusual. Before they departed, the ambassador mentioned one more thing. "We have scanned your system, of course, standard procedure. We noticed you have some defensive stations around your planet. Very charming, very quaint. However, we must advise you that military pursuits are not necessary under our protection. The Empire maintains peace throughout the galaxy. You would be much better served focusing on art, culture, and trade." His jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained calm. "We will certainly consider your advice, Ambassador." After the transmission ended, the bridge was silent for a long moment. Finally, spoke up. "Sir, did he just tell us to disarm?" "That's what it sounded like," replied. He turned to, "Your thoughts, Doctor." Crossed her arms. His language patterns suggest a hierarchical society. He sees us as children. Worse, he sees us as children who should obey without question. The phrase proper place is particularly concerning. It implies there's an improper place and consequences for not accepting their help. They think we're weak, said quietly. They think we're ignorant, corrected, which might be more dangerous. An ignorant species can be guided, shaped, controlled. Pulled up a communication channel to Earth. Admiral Park appeared on the screen. He was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Admiral, we've made contact, reported. I watched the whole thing, said. What's your assessment? They're advanced, sir, very advanced, but they're also arrogant. They expect us to be grateful. They expect us to submit. Leaned back in his chair. Did you notice how they scanned our system without asking permission? How they assumed we'd follow their ship? How they told us to forget about our military? Yes, sir. They remind me of someone, said thoughtfully. Remember your history lessons, Captain. Remember what happened when technologically advanced nations encountered less advanced ones on Earth. His blood ran cold. He remembered colonization, conquest, subjugation, all dressed up in pretty words about civilization and guidance and protection. Orders, sir? Asked. Go with them. Learn everything you can. Be polite. Be respectful. But don't agree to anything. And Captain, don't tell them anything about our actual capabilities. Let them think we're as primitive as they believe. Understood, Admiral. As the Horizon's promise followed the massive crystal ship away from Jupiter, looked at his crew. They were good people, smart people. They had figured out what was happening without being told. They think we'll be amazed by their pretty ships and their technology, said Commander Lee, the military observer who had been silent until now. He was a special forces officer, trained to notice threats. They think we'll beg for their protection. Let them think that, said quietly, for now. Far behind them, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's moon Europa, a human battleship watched the alien vessel leave. It did not follow. It did not reveal itself. It simply watched, recorded, and sent encrypted data back to Earth. The aliens had no idea it was there. They were too busy being impressed with themselves to look carefully at what humanity had built in the dark. That would be their first mistake. The outpost was the largest structure Captain had ever seen. It orbited a gas giant in a star system 20 light-years from Earth. The station was shaped like a flower with 12 petals, each petal the size of a city. Ships came and went like bees around a hive, hundreds of different designs from dozens of different species. Welcome to Outpost Sigma 7, said Overseer as he met the human delegation in the docking bay. He was taller than Ambassador, with darker blue skin and more elaborate silver markings. This is one of our smaller stations. We have thousands like it across the Empire. Doctor kept her expression neutral, but she made mental notes. Smaller station, thousands more. They were showing off, but they were also sending a message about their size and power. It's impressive, she said truthfully. Commander Lee walked slightly behind the group, his eyes constantly moving. He was counting guard positions, noting the layout, observing the aliens around them. Most species were smaller than humans. Many looked fragile. Few looked like they could fight. The tour began with a walk through what called the Gallery of Unity. It was a massive hall filled with displays from each member species of the Empire. 47 species in total, each one showing their art, their culture, their history. Each species brought something unique when they joined us, explained. The brought their music, the brought their mathematics, the owl brought their poetry, all contributed to the greatness of our empire. How did they join? Asked. Was it voluntary? Markings flickered. Of course. We offered them the protection and wisdom of the empire. They accepted gratefully, as all intelligent species do. They continued to a viewing platform or showed them the military capabilities of the holographic displays demonstrated weapons that could crack open moons. shields that could withstand the heat of a star, ships that could travel across the galaxy in mere weeks. "This is what protects the peace," said proudly. "No species in the known galaxy would dare challenge us, and under our protection no one needs to fear." The junior tactical analyst in their group leaned close to and whispered, "Those weapons are powerful, but the designs are inefficient. Too much energy waste, and their shields have a visible frequency signature." Nodded slightly. He had noticed the same things. They had advanced technology, but they had built it for show as much as function. It looked impressive. It probably worked. But it wasn't designed by people who expected to actually fight. The tour continued. They were shown gardens where gravity could be adjusted to make water flow upward. They saw manufacturing facilities where ships were grown rather than built. They visited cultural centers where aliens from dozens of worlds gathered to share their arts. At each stop, waited for the humans to show amazement, to beg for the secrets, to ask how they could possibly join such a wonderful civilization. Instead, asked technical questions that made the uncomfortable. How did the artificial gravity work at the quantum level? What was the power-to-mass ratio of their engines? What materials did they use for radiation shielding? "You ask very specific questions," said, his tone less friendly now. "Most new species simply want to experience the wonders. They do not worry about the details." "We like to understand things," said simply. The final part of the tour was what called the Chamber of Enlightenment. It was a dark room where holographic images played on all the walls. The images showed previous first contacts between the and other species. In every recording, the pattern was the same. They arrived. They demonstrated their power. The new species fell to the ground in worship or terror or both. They begged to join the empire. They agreed to whatever terms were offered. "As you can see," said, "this is the natural response when a young species meets an elder. There is no shame in it. It is simply the way of things." Watched the recordings carefully. In one, a species that looked like giant insects immediately surrendered their entire military. In another, a species of water dwellers gave up their sovereignty within hours. In a third, a humanoid species signed a treaty without even reading it. "What happened to their militaries?" asked quietly. "Disbanded, of course," said. "Under our protection they have no need for weapons. We handle all security matters. They are free to focus on more peaceful pursuits." "And their governments?" asked. "They remain in a limited capacity. They handle local matters, but all major decisions are made by the High Council. It is more efficient that way." Caught's eye. The message was clear. This wasn't an alliance. It was conquest wrapped in pretty words and impressive technology. Every species in this empire had given up their freedom in exchange for protection they might not have needed. That evening, the human delegation was given quarters on the station. Once they were alone and certain they weren't being monitored, they gathered to talk. "They want us to be another display in their gallery," said angrily. "Another tamed species to show off. They see us as children," added, "or worse, as pets. Smart pets maybe, but still pets." Was already writing a detailed report. "Their military is impressive in scale, but not in tactical thinking. They've never fought a real war. They just show up with overwhelming force, and everyone surrenders. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't immediately give up." Stood at the window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home. He thought about humanity's history, the wars, the struggles, the hard lessons learned. "What do we tell them?" asked. "The truth," said, "that we need to consult with our government, that we don't make decisions lightly, that we thank them for their generous offer, but we need time to consider." "They won't like that," warned. "No," agreed. "They won't. They expect us to sign immediately like everyone else did, but we're not everyone else." The next morning they met with again, delivered their message politely but firmly. They were grateful for the tour. They understood the benefits of joining the Empire, but they needed to return to Earth and discuss this with their leaders. They could not make such an important decision without proper consideration. Markings turned a darker shade of blue. This is highly irregular. Most species understand immediately that joining the Empire is the only logical choice, the only safe choice. "We appreciate your patience with our unusual customs," said smoothly. "How long will you need?" asked. "We'll send a message when we're ready to talk again," said. As the Horizons Promise departed the station, carrying the human delegation back to Earth, contacted Ambassador. "They are stubborn," he reported. "They ask too many questions. They show no proper respect. Should we be concerned?" His image appeared on the screen. "No, they are young and foolish. They will realize their mistake soon. All species do. Give them time to understand that they have no choice. When they see that the galaxy belongs to us, they will beg to join. They always do." But Ambassador was wrong. The humans weren't going home to beg. They were going home to prepare, and they had no idea what humanity had been preparing for. The meeting room in Geneva was full of Earth's most important leaders. Premier sat at the head of the table, her face serious as she listened to Captain's full report. Around her sat representatives from every nation, every major military branch, and every scientific institution. "Let me make sure I understand," said slowly. "They want us to give up our military, surrender our sovereignty, and let them make our major decisions. In exchange, they'll protect us and share some of their technology." "That's correct," Premier confirmed. "They call it joining the galactic community, but it's really about control." Fleet Admiral Hand slammed his hand on the table. He was the commander of all Earth's military forces, a position created after humanity unified its governments 50 years ago. It's colonialism, old-fashioned conquest dressed up in diplomatic language. We've seen this before in our own history. Doctor stood and activated a holographic display. "I analyzed their language patterns across all our interactions. The language has 17 different words for ranks and hierarchies. It has 12 words that translate roughly to subordinate or lesser. But it has no word that means equal alliance. None. That concept doesn't exist in their thinking." The room fell silent as people absorbed that information. "How many species have accepted their offer?" asked General from the Air Force. 47, Commander replied. "Every single species they've contacted. They've been doing this for 50,000 years. They've never been refused." "Then we'll be the first," said firmly. Over the next month, Earth buzzed with activity. The news of the alien contact had been released to the public. People's reactions varied wildly. Some were excited about joining an advanced galactic civilization. Others were terrified of the aliens. Still others were angry at the idea of surrendering Earth's independence. Protests filled the streets of major cities. Some demanded that Earth accept the offer for the technology and protection. Others demanded that Earth fight to remain free. The debates raged on every news channel, every social media platform, every street corner. Premier addressed the world in a live broadcast. She stood behind a podium with the Earth flag behind her, looking directly into the camera. "My fellow citizens of Earth," she began, "we have been offered a choice by the Empire. They promise us protection, technology, and a place in their galactic community. These are attractive offers, but they come with a price." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The price is our freedom. The price is our right to govern ourselves. The price is our ability to defend ourselves and make our own choices about our future. Throughout human history, we have seen this offer before. Powerful nations have come to less powerful ones and said, 'Let us guide you. Let us protect you. Give up your weapons and trust us.' And every time the result has been the same. The powerful took control and the weak lost everything." Her voice grew stronger. Humanity did not claw its way from scattered tribes to a unified spacefaring civilization just to bow before the first aliens we meet. We did not survive ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters by being weak. We survived by being strong, by being smart, by refusing to give up, even when things seemed hopeless. Around the world, people watched in silence. So here is my answer to the Empire. We thank you for your offer. We appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge, but we must respectfully decline client status. We will not disarm. We will not surrender our sovereignty. However, we are very interested in an alliance between equals. We are ready to trade, to share culture, to work together, but we will do so as partners, not as subjects. The broadcast ended. Within hours, they received Earth's official response. At their distant headquarters, the High Council gathered to discuss this unprecedented situation. Ambassador stood before them, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. They refused, asked High Counselor, an ancient who had overseen the integration of 20 different species. No one refuses. They claim they want an equal alliance, reported. They do not understand that such a thing is impossible. They are too young, too primitive. They must be guided. Perhaps we were too gentle, suggested Military Coordinator Lan. Perhaps a demonstration of our true power is needed. Not violence, of course, but a display that makes them understand the situation more clearly. The Council agreed. They would send a larger fleet to Earth, not to attack, but to show the humans how futile resistance would be. Once the humans saw the true might of the Empire, they would surely reconsider their foolish pride. Back on Earth, Admiral called a secret meeting with his top officers. They gathered in a bunker deep below Earth's surface, a facility that even most government officials didn't know existed. "They will come back," said, "and they'll bring more ships. They'll try to intimidate us into submission." "Let them come," said Captain Shin, commander of the dreadnought Indomitable. She was one of the youngest battleship captains in the fleet, but also one of the best. "We've been preparing for this scenario for 200 years. Chief Engineer pulled up tactical displays on the screens around the room. "We've run the simulations against their known capabilities. Their weapons are powerful, but they're designed for overwhelming force against undefended targets. They've never fought someone who could fight back." "What about their shields?" someone asked. "Advanced but predictable," replied. "They broadcast on specific frequencies. We've already designed countermeasures. Our weapons can penetrate them." Looked around the room at his officers. These were people who had trained their entire lives for war, not because they wanted war, but because humanity had learned a hard lesson throughout its history. The strong took what they wanted from the weak. The only way to stay free was to be strong enough that conquest was too expensive. "How long until we're ready?" asked. "We're ready now, sir," said. "We've been ready." Nodded slowly. "Then we wait. Let them come with their shiny ships and their confident smiles. Let them think we're primitives who will be impressed by their light show. And then we show them why humanity survived." Finished. In orbit around Earth, the final preparations were being made. Ships that had been disguised as civilian vessels activated their hidden weapons. Space stations that looked like research facilities opened to reveal missile batteries. On Mars, the colony domes retracted to show the massive military complex underneath. On the Moon, hangar doors that had been hidden for decades began to open. Admiral Park watched from his command center, looking at the tactical display that showed Earth's full military strength. 200 years ago, after humanity had unified and started expanding into space, the government had made a decision. They would build a military force powerful enough to defend Earth from any threat. They didn't know what was out there in the galaxy, but they wanted to be ready. Some had called it paranoid. Some had called it a waste of resources. But the leaders had remembered Earth's history. They remembered what happened when one group had better weapons than another. They remembered colonialism, imperialism, and conquest. So they built ships, hundreds of them. They designed weapons. They trained soldiers. They prepared for the day when Earth might meet someone stronger, and they kept it secret, showing the galaxy only a fraction of their true strength. That day had come. "Sir," said an officer, "we're receiving a message from they're sending a fleet to Earth. 15 warships. They say they're coming to help us reconsider our position." Smiled grimly. "Send a reply. Tell them they're welcome to visit. We'd be happy to show them around our system." "And sir, the fleet. Tell everyone to get ready. It's time they learned something about humanity. We don't impress easily." The fleet arrived at Earth's solar system in a display of power meant to intimidate. 15 warships, each one larger and more impressive than the last, emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Their shields glowed with blue energy. Their weapons were armed but not pointed at anything. They broadcast on all frequencies, making sure everyone could see them. Military Coordinator Land stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue planet in the distance. Around it, he could see the primitive satellites and space stations the humans had built. Tiny things, really. Nothing that could possibly threaten a warship. "Broadcast our message," he commanded. His communication officer activated the transmission. "Humans of Earth, this is the Empire. We have come to show you the protection we offer. Observe our strength. Observe the power that keeps the galaxy safe. We ask you one final time to reconsider your refusal. Join us and all of this can be yours. Refuse and you will be alone in a dangerous galaxy." The message was clear, though not openly hostile. "Look what we can do. Look what you're refusing. Be reasonable." On Earth, in the command center deep underground, Admiral watched the alien fleet on his displays. 15 ships. Impressive. They had brought enough force to conquer a small nation. They probably thought it was overwhelming. They had no idea what was about to happen. "Admiral, they're waiting for our response," said a communications officer. "Open a channel," said calmly. He touched his console and his face appeared on screens throughout the fleet. "Military Coordinator Land, this is Fleet Admiral of the United Earth Space Navy. Welcome to our solar system. Your ships are very impressive. Thank you for the demonstration." Land's 4 eyes blinked in what might have been satisfaction. The human sounded appropriately impressed. Perhaps this would be easier than he thought. "We are pleased you appreciate our capabilities," Land replied. "Does this mean you will reconsider?" "Actually," said, and now there was something dangerous in his smile, "I was wondering if you would like to see ours." Before Land could respond, the space around his fleet erupted with activity. Ships appeared, dozens of them, hundreds of them. They had been there all along, hidden by stealth technology that made them invisible to sensors. Now they and the sight was overwhelming. 300 battleships materialized around Earth. They weren't beautiful like the ships. They weren't covered in crystal or glowing with energy. They were brutal, angular, efficient machines designed for one purpose: war. Every surface bristled with weapons that could punch through planets, missile batteries that could launch hundreds of warheads per second, laser arrays powerful enough to cut through armor like paper. Land's bridge fell silent. Officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Where had they all come from? How had the sensors not detected them? But that wasn't all. Around Mars, what they had thought was a civilian colony suddenly transformed. Domes retracted, buildings folded away. Underneath was revealed a massive military complex, larger than anything they had ever seen. Shipyards, factories, weapons platforms. Mars wasn't a colony, it was a fortress. On the Moon, the surface opened. Hidden doors that had been camouflaged for decades slid aside, revealing internal hangar bays filled with even more ships. Dozens of vessels that had been under construction were exposed, each one in various stages of completion. Asteroids throughout the belt suddenly came to life. They weren't asteroids at all. They were disguised defense platforms, now revealing their true nature: massive guns oriented toward the fleet. Even the satellites that Lan had dismissed as primitive suddenly showed their teeth. What he had thought were simple communication devices were actually armed orbital platforms. Hundreds of them, all around Earth. This is impossible, Lan whispered. His four eyes could barely process what they were seeing. You've only had for 400 years. It took us 10,000 years to build a fleet like this. Captain Shin's voice came across the communication channel. She was aboard the Indomitable, a dreadnought so large it could be seen from Earth's surface. Coordinator Lan, allow me to explain something about humanity. We've been fighting and killing each other for 10,000 years. We got very, very good at it. Wing Commander led a squadron of 500 fighters in a flyby of the flagship. The small ships moved in perfect formation, their engines leaving trails of light across space. Each fighter carried enough firepower to destroy a cruiser. Each pilot had trained for years to fight in the darkness of space. Admiral's voice cut through the stunned silence. For the past 200 years since we unified our world and reached the stars, we have prepared for this moment. We didn't know what was out there. We didn't know if we would meet friends or enemies, so we prepared for the worst. On the flagship, officers scrambled to analyze the human fleet. The tactical displays were frightening. The humans had weapons they had never seen. Kinetic kill vehicles that could accelerate to impossible speeds. Electromagnetic pulse weapons that could disable electronics. Nuclear missiles. Antimatter warheads. And stranger things, experimental weapons that the scanners couldn't even identify. Admiral, said one of Lan's officers, they're weapons signatures. They're designed to penetrate our shields. They've studied us. They know our weaknesses. Lan felt something he hadn't experienced in his long career. Fear. Real, genuine fear. We need to leave, he said quietly. Now. Sir, we can't just leave, another officer protested. The Council sent us to. The Council sent us to intimidate primitives, Lan shouted. Does this look like primitives to you? They have been waiting for us. This is a trap and we walked right into it. He took a breath, steadying himself. Send a message to Earth. The communication channel opened. Admiral appeared on screen again, still calm, still collected. Behind him, tactical displays showed every ship surrounded by targeting solutions from multiple human vessels. Admiral, Lan said, trying to keep his voice steady. We appear to have made an error in judgment. We did not realize the extent of Earth's military capabilities. No, agreed. You didn't. You assumed that because we're young, we're weak. You assumed that because we didn't immediately worship your technology, we had nothing of our own. You assumed that a species that only recently reached the stars couldn't possibly be a threat. We meant no offense, Lan said carefully. I know, replied. You didn't think we were important enough to offend, that's worse. But let me make something very clear, Coordinator. These ships you see, we built them to use on each other. For thousands of years we fought among ourselves. Wars that killed millions. Weapons that could destroy entire cities. We built all of this because we were our own worst enemy. He leaned forward. We unified 50 years ago. We stopped fighting each other. But we didn't forget how to fight. We didn't forget how to kill. We just redirected all that knowledge, all that skill, all that terrible creativity toward a new purpose, defending ourselves from anyone who might think we're easy prey. Captain's ship moved closer to the flagship, close enough that they could see the weapons ports opening on the human dreadnought. Every weapon you see was designed to destroy something, not to intimidate, not to show off, to actually kill, because that's what weapons are for, that's what we're good at. Commander's voice joined the conversation. He was aboard one of the Special Forces ships, vessels designed for stealth strikes and boarding actions. The Empire has been the dominant power for 50,000 years. You've never fought a real war in all that time. You show up and species surrender, but we don't surrender. We don't know how. Lan looked at his tactical displays again. 300 human battleships, thousands of fighters, orbital platforms, hidden weapons. And behind it all, a planet full of 7 billion humans who had spent their entire history learning to wage war. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "The same thing we wanted from the beginning," replied. "Respect, recognition as equals, an alliance, not a surrender. We're willing to join the galactic community. We're willing to share our knowledge and our culture, but we will do it as partners, not as subjects." "The Council will never accept this," Lan warned. "They have never accepted a species as equals." "Then the Council needs to learn something new," said. "We're not going away, we're not going to disarm, and we're definitely not going to submit. The galaxy has changed today, Coordinator. Humanity is here, and we're not what you expected." 3 months passed before the return to Earth. This time they came differently. No fleet of warships, no displays of force, just a single diplomatic vessel with ambassador and a team of actual negotiators, not overseers. The meeting took place on a neutral station that humanity had built specifically for this purpose. It orbited between Earth and Mars, a place where both species could meet as equals. The station was simple but functional, very different from the elaborate structures. It sent a message: we don't need to impress you, we just need to talk. Captain, now promoted to Admiral, greeted the delegation personally. Doctor stood beside him, along with Premier and several other Earth officials. The atmosphere was tense but not hostile. His 4 eyes studied the humans carefully. When he spoke, his tone was completely different from their first meeting. "Admiral, Premier, thank you for agreeing to meet with us again." "Thank you for coming," replied. "Please sit, we have much to discuss." They gathered around a conference table. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then did something unexpected. He lowered his head, a gesture that recognized as a sign of respect among the. "We owe you an apology," he said. "We made assumptions about your species based on incomplete information. We treated you as children when we should have treated you as peers. This was wrong." Premier nodded slowly. "We accept your apology. We also understand that your assumptions came from experience. Every species you've met before has reacted the same way. We're different. We know that must be confusing." "Confusing," agreed, "and frightening. The High Council has ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. We have always been the strongest, the most advanced, the protectors, and then we met you. And discovered you weren't as strong as you thought," Admiral said quietly. "Yes," admitted. "Your fleet. Even now, our military analysts are trying to understand how you built such weapons with your limited resources, how you developed stealth technology we couldn't detect, how you designed ships specifically to counter our capabilities when you had never seen our ships before." Doctor leaned forward. "Would you like to know the truth? We didn't design them specifically for you. We designed them to fight ourselves. For thousands of years, we waged war against each other, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. We developed terrible weapons because we were fighting people just as smart, just as creative, just as determined as we were." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "When we unified 50 years ago, we didn't forget those weapons. We improved them. We asked ourselves, what if there's something out there stronger than us? What if first contact is hostile? How do we survive? So we took everything we learned from fighting each other and we prepared. We built a military designed to fight anyone, anywhere, under any circumstances." "You built a military designed to fight gods," said softly. "And then you met us and realized we weren't gods, just an old empire that had forgotten what real conflict looks like." Over the next weeks, negotiations continued. The discussions were difficult. They had never negotiated with anyone as equals. They had to learn new diplomatic protocols. They had to accept that humanity would not disarm, would not surrender sovereignty, would not become a client state. But slowly, a new kind of agreement took shape. "We propose something unprecedented," Premier said during one session. "Earth becomes an associate power of the Empire. We're allied with you but not subordinate to you. We maintain our military and our government. We have equal voice in matters that concern us. We share technology and culture freely. We trade on fair terms. We defend each other against external threats. The delegation discussed this among themselves for hours. Finally, returned with their answer. The High Council has agreed to your terms, he said. You will be the first associate power in our history. This will change everything. Change is good, replied with a small smile. The galaxy has been the same for a long time. Maybe it needs something new. The treaty was signed in a ceremony broadcast to both Earth and space. It was a historic moment. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Empire had recognized another species as equals. But the changes didn't stop there. Within months, other client species began quietly contacting Earth. They had watched the negotiations carefully. They had seen humanity stand up to thee and win not through violence, but through strength and determination. Representatives from 3 different species requested private meetings with Premier. They asked careful questions about independence, about self-governance, about the right to defend themselves. We're not trying to break up your empire, assured during one of their regular communications. But we believe that all intelligent species deserve the right to choose their own path. The Council is concerned, admitted. For 50,000 years our way has been the only way. Now other species see there is an alternative. They wonder if they too could be independent. And that frightens you, observed. Yes, but perhaps it should have frightened us sooner. We have grown comfortable. We assumed our way was the only way because no one challenged us. You challenged us, and the galaxy is changing because of it. 6 months after the treaty was signed, Admiral stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise, the same ship that had first made contact with the... But now he was part of a joint patrol, flying alongside a cruiser. It felt strange, but also right. Captain commanded the Indomitable nearby, her massive dreadnought serving as the flagship of the joint fleet. Military Coordinator Lan had joined them, his ship flying in formation with the human vessels. This is odd, Lan admitted over a private channel too. Flying beside humans as allies rather than trying to intimidate you into submission. It's better this way, replied, trust me. Can I ask you something? Lan said. When you saw our fleet approach Earth, did you really build all of those weapons to use on each other? Yes, confirmed. Every single one. The missiles, the antimatter warheads, all designed to kill other humans. We fought wars that killed millions of our own people. That's horrifying. It is, agreed. But it also taught us something important. It taught us the cost of conflict. We learned that war is terrible, that killing is easy but peace is hard, that the only way to survive is to be strong enough that no one wants to fight you, and wise enough not to fight when you don't have to. Lan was quiet for a moment. They have never fought a real war, we've never lost anything. We just show up with overwhelming force and expect surrender. But you know what it means to lose, to sacrifice, to fight when everything seems hopeless. Yes, said, and that's why we'll never surrender. Not to you, not to anyone. We've lost too much already. We paid for our freedom in blood and pain and centuries of conflict. We're not giving it up for anything. I understand now, Lan said. When we first met, we thought you were primitive, warlike, dangerous. We were right about the last part, at least. You are dangerous, but you're dangerous because you understand violence in a way we never have. You respect it. You fear it, and that makes you stronger than us in ways we never expected. Back on Earth, Admiral retired from active duty. He had served for 40 years, preparing humanity for the day when they would meet something stronger than themselves. That day had come, and humanity had proven strong enough. On his last day in uniform, he stood in front of a gathering of officers and gave a final speech. When I was young, he said, people asked why we spent so much building a military, why we needed battleships when we had no enemies, why we trained soldiers when we were at peace. I told them it was because we didn't know what was out there. We needed to be ready. He looked around the room at the faces of the men and women who had served under him. And we were ready. When they came and told us to disarm, we showed them why that was impossible, not because we wanted to fight them, but because we had learned that the only way to guarantee peace is to be strong enough that war is too costly. Now we have allies, friends even, that respect us because we demanded respect. Other species are learning from our example. The galaxy is changing, but we can never forget the lesson of our history. Freedom is never given. It must be taken and held and defended. So continue to train, continue to build, continue to be ready, not because we expect war, but because we refuse to be weak. And remember always, the battleships that made the pause weren't built in a day. They were built over 200 years of preparation. Peace through strength isn't just a saying, it's our survival strategy. The officers saluted. Admiral saluted back one final time, then walked out into retirement, knowing that humanity's future was secure. Far above Earth, the joint human fleet patrolled the borders of known space. Two species, once on the edge of conflict, now working together. They had learned that strength comes in many forms. The humans had learned that they weren't alone in the universe. And somewhere in the galaxy, other species watched and wondered. If humanity could stand as equals to the Empire, what did that mean for them? Could they too choose their own path? The galaxy was changing, and it all started the day the aliens thought humans would be amazed by their battleships, until they saw what humanity had built in the dark.